again, you bunch of big sexy bastards. Welcome to another gusset-moistening edition of The Erotic Adventures of E.L. James, with me, E.L. James, writer of erotic fiction. And for those of you who are wondering, the E.L. stands for Excitedly Lickable. Whoa. Now, for the past few years, we've all been glued to our television sets, watching that exciting television series, A Game of Thrones, written by that sexy little bastard, George R.R. Martin. And in case you were wondering, the R.R. stands for Randy Romp. Now, it's a little-known fact that A Game of Thrones was originally inspired by my own great writing. So it's about time that my own original story was given its chance to shine. So you better prepare yourselves. Grab some Kleenex and make sure you've got your sword in your hand, because it's time for an erotic adventure. It's time for A Game of Bones. The heavy doors of Castle Beige crashed open, and John Sleet stormed into the cobbled courtyard. He was exhausted after a busy day of kinging and doing battles. He'd spent most of the morning fighting freaky-looking ice zombies, and now longed for nothing more than a flagon of ale and a nice warm bed. But he knew he had more king stuff to do long before he could rest. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and John Sleet's crown was enormous, like many other things John possessed. With a world-weary sigh, he gathered himself up and marched toward the castle keep, treading carefully because one of his direwolves had done a massive shit in the courtyard. John was tall, dark, and ripped. Not ripped as in muscular, ripped as in earlier in the day he had bent over too quickly and torn the arse out of his tights. He had sad, pensive eyes, and despite being the ruler of a fictional kingdom, he somehow had a Yorkshire accent. But John also had a secret that he was deeply ashamed of. Contrary to his position of power, and despite being the ripe old age of 23, he had never done it with a lady. Never. I mean, not even close. Not so much as a sniff. One of John's greatest fears was dying on the battlefield without even seeing a single boob. Which would have been a great shame, considering what he had to offer the fairer sex. Strength, honour, dashing good looks, and a wanger that looked like a Pringles tube with an orange on the end of it. Seriously, there was barely a pair of tights in the kingdom that could hold his cumbersome todger. But the shame of his virginity and the size of his flesh trumpet were not the only burdens he carried. For John Sleet was a bastard. Not in the illegitimate sense. His parents were married when he was born. He was just a bit of a bastard. He was prone to bouts of sarcasm that just kind of pissed people off. To be honest, it probably accounted for his lack of action in the rumpy-pumpy department. John was just about to decloak when the doors to his sleeping chambers burst open, and his oversized stable hand, Hoedown, shambled in. "Hoedown!" he bellowed excitedly. "What's that?" replied John. "You have urgent news for me." "Hoedown!" "What's that?" "The Queen of the Southlands has just arrived at the gates of Castle Beige with an army of thousands demanding an audience with me immediately." "Hoedown!" "She says the fates of the people of my kingdom hang in the balance if I do not hear her message." "Hoedown!" "Say that again, Hoedown. I didn't understand that last bit." "Hoedown!" "Only joking. I understand what you said perfectly. I'm such a bastard sometimes." John picked out his best cloak and rushed to meet the Queen of the Southlands in the throne room, I mean the actual room with the throne in it, not the British slang term for the toilet. John Sleet arrived at the throne room, half expecting it to be crammed with dignitaries and emissaries. But upon first glance, it appeared to be empty and silent. As his eyes adjusted to the murky darkness of the candlelit stone chamber, a figure stepped out into his line of sight from behind the shadow of the tin throne. There she was, in all her glory. Saucy Bannister, Queen of the Southlands. And what a sight she was to behold! She was tall and willowy, like the tree on the sigil that represented her house. Her skin was as pale as milk of the poppy, smooth and translucent as freshly pressed parchment. Hair luxuriant and fiery red like the rays of the morning sun. Sad eyes, like deep pools of Arctic blue. A jawline that was strong and stoic, like it had been carefully sculpted by fine artists. And she had a lovely set of knockers, too. The kind of breasts that made you want to hold on to them and jiggle them about a bit while shouting, "Weh-hey-hey." She glided gracefully towards John like a nun on roller skates. She had a pained expression on her face, as though she carried the worries of the world on her slender shoulders. Though to be fair, it could also have been dysentery. There was a lot of it about in those days. John felt a sudden urge to sweep her up in his arms and hold her tightly, to soothe and comfort her and tell her all was right with the world. But at the same time, he also wanted to keep his distance in case it was dysentery. He didn't want to get poo on him. "Hail to thee, King of the Northlands! I bring tidings of great unrest," she cried. He was going to ask one of his servants to bring some Imodium in a bucket, but before he could, she explained herself fully to him. "My unrest is not internal. It is a nationwide unrest that threatens to bring violence and death throughout all of bottom earth. Our subjects are not happy. The South mistrusts the North, and the North mistrusts the South. It is only a matter of time before there is full-blown war betwixt them. We need something to unite them all, a holy union of Bannister and Beige, with a new singular monarch, one king to rule them all, a ruler with both bloodlines flowing in his veins." John gasped sexily, as the realization of what she was saying sunk in. "You mean, yes, it's time for us to make a baby." Before John had a chance to speak, Saucy dropped her silken robes to the floor, unleashing her big fleshy bangers. John's blood surged to his nethers, making him feel lightheaded. Like I said earlier, it really was massive. Without a moment's hesitation, he grabbed her waist and pulled her into him, sealing her lips with his own in a passionate mouth-based embrace. They kissed deeper and deeper, wetter and wetter, breath heaving and arms flailing as he tore at his cloak and tunic, faster and faster, hotter and hotter, like a big two-headed sex dragon. But it was too much. The electrifying touch of her body and 23 years of blue-balled virginity took its toll. With a low moan and a facial expression that made him look like a yawning giraffe, he spaffed himself.
Crikey! I don't know about you, but that story got me fully tumescent. Well, I'm off now to clean out me pipes. Don't forget to tune in next time for more Erotic Adventures of E.L. James. Ta-ta for now, you big sexy bastard!